Georgia passed one of the strictest abortion laws in the country last week. The law is a so-called heartbeat bill and outlaws abortion 6 weeks after conception, before some women know they're even pregnant. The law leaves room for the prosecution of doctors involved in an abortion and grants legal personhood to fetuses. That means fetuses will be counted in Georgia's population, receive child support, and be able to collect money from lawsuits. However, there's some debate within both pro-life and pro-choice camps about whether the law could actually be enforced in this way. Now, Georgia is not the only state to pass more restrictions on abortion. Just weeks ago, Ohio passed its own heartbeat law and is currently debating legislation that critics say could ban insurance coverage for some forms of birth control. And this week, the Alabama State Senate debated a bill that would outlaw abortion outright. So to discuss this, we'd like to welcome in our panel. We have Mia Mamone, Editor-in-Chief of North by Northwestern, Emily Surf from Planned Parenthood Generation Action, and Virginia Langmaid, NNN's own legal analyst. So why are we seeing more of this type of legislation right now?
I think it's pretty clear that the atmosphere of our country, led by Donald Trump, has really given people who believe these laws should be in place kind of just power and support to bring them to legislation, bring them into their individual states, houses and stuff. I think it's definitely influenced by Trump.
I would definitely agree with that, but the more recent change has been on the makeup of the Supreme Court with the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh in place of Justice Kennedy. Kennedy was really the swing vote on the court, and he was the one who would kind of shift the decisions between more liberal and more conservative decision making. So with Kavanaugh replacing him, that leaves a lot of the decisions more up in the air, or because Kavanaugh is a more conservative justice, that means that Republicans think that they're probably going to be able to get him to vote on their ideological side. So bringing these cases up through the courts right now, the Republicans believe they have a better chance of overturning Roe v. Wade.
Now, Virginia, given existing Supreme Court decisions about abortion, what sort of legal challenges do you think this law might face?
So I would say at the outset, the Georgia law faces several legal challenges. The most obvious challenge is the challenge based on the precedent of Roe v. Wade, and the Georgia law tries to circumvent this by its fetal personhood segment, that by declaring a fetus to be a legal person in the state of Georgia, there's a legal idea that you could then circumvent Roe because Roe applies to fetuses, not to people, not to citizens of a certain state. However, that imbuing of legal personhood carries with it a whole other set of potential issues for the state. Like you said, the explicit law provides that that fetuses are now counted in the population, that you begin to collect child support at essentially the moment of conception. But that really opens Georgia up to other potential lawsuits. How do you keep an incarcerated woman who is pregnant? Because if her fetus is a legal citizen of the state, you're illegally incarcerating a citizen of the state of Georgia. A similar issue happens with deportations. When is a citizen a naturalized citizen? And then what happens if you have decided that you need to deport the mother, but she's pregnant with a child that could be born in the state of Georgia that you've declared to be a person? How do you suss out citizenship issues in that way? So it really opens Georgia up to more lawsuits, but I think that that's part of the intent of the vagueness of the law, is to allow this to be interpreted in mostly conservative-leaning courts.
Now, Virginia, you've read the whole bill, and you're from the state of Georgia. What stood out to you most?
I think what really stood out to me is the intentional vagueness of the law, right? So like I said, the law allows for fetal personhood, which is a new precedent in state law, and it doesn't describe any other parameters for that. So it outlaws abortion past 6 weeks, and it declares a fetus to be a person. Full stop. There's a lot of legal questions about what does it mean then when an abortion is given after 6 weeks? How are we counting that? Abortion itself is not a crime in Georgia state books, and a lot of legislators have said, oh, well, we will make it a crime. But that's purely in the hypothetical. In the reality, come January of 2020, aborting a fetus after 6 weeks becomes some sort of crime But is it murder? Because this is a legal person. Is it the crime of abortion that isn't on the books? It's really unclear. And so this sort of vagueness leaves women's health in danger because they can't make appropriate decisions when to get an abortion, who to seek an abortion from. And that's the point.
All right, Mia, I'll go to you now. There's been a varied reaction to this and other heartbeat bills across the country. Actress Alyssa Milano even proposed a sex strike on social media, while some have proposed a boycott of films made in the state of Georgia. Are these appropriate strategies for opposing this kind of legislation?
I think in the case of Alyssa Milano, I definitely see where she's coming from. She feels very passionate about this. These are terrible laws that are going to really negatively affect American women. I think in her case specifically, there was a lot of backlash from progressive people, feminists who were saying that kind of perpetuated some more antiquated ideas about female sexuality and things like that. So I think that's something that she's grappling with, the left is more grappling with. But also I definitely think the economic side, the boycotts, that can certainly be powerful. We saw that in North Carolina, I believe, with the bathroom bills. Lots of major events pulled out of North Carolina, and that did change something. So I think that's certainly a possibility in this case.
Emily, any reactions? What separates this bill from others we've seen and this sort of onslaught of bills that we're seeing?
Well, I think a lot of these bills are really in the same vein in that they're all trying to bring these cases up through the court system, and they are all really trying to provoke a case that will reach the Supreme Court and overturn Roe v. Wade. So that's really the intention behind all of that. The heartbeat bill language in specific is very purposeful, and we see that in this Georgia law. They're doing that to invoke a sense of personhood that just frankly isn't true. It isn't accurate to what a fetus, if you can call it that, at 6 weeks is. Just to reiterate, a lot of women do not even know that they are pregnant at 6 weeks. That is a missed period to them. But they are using this language to sort of invoke this emotion in people who, you know, carry these pro-life beliefs. So that is unique, I guess, to this Georgia and other heartbeat type legislation.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll keep an eye on this. We'll be back after the break.